Good morning, good morning, good morning. 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 Clap your hands, clap, clap, clap. Stomp your feet, stomp, stomp, stomp. Spin around, spin, spin, spin. All right. Good morning, good morning, good morning. 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 Wash your hands, wash, wash, wash. Shake your hands, shake, shake, shake. Brush your teeth, brush, brush, brush. All right. Good morning.
Hey, good morning. It's Uncle Lou here. Yeah, that's right. It's me, Uncle Lou, and I'm live for you on LouTube today. Thanks for watching. What a great weekend. Well, was this not, this was just one of the best weekends, wasn't it? Man, I just had such a great time this weekend. I took my, any of you guys do the haunted houses during Halloween? I get it that they're kind of cheesy or whatever. I used to do them all the time when I was younger, like middle school, high school, hell, probably even like early 20s. You'd go with a big group of friends or something. But I haven't been, God, it's probably been 15 or 20 years since I've been to one. But my daughter is in 7th grade now, and she's never been scared of anything. Like, she's just always been that kind of kid. Like Lou Jr., not so much. Like, he doesn't even like to watch scary movies, or he's in 5th grade. Like, when we go to Six Flags or whatever, which we haven't been in a couple of years, so this might be different now, but like when we go to Six Flags, there's certain roller coasters that Lou Jr. just won't ride, you know, but it's been a couple of years. He would ride them now. But I took him, the last time we went to Six Flags was probably 3 years ago. So my daughter would have been in 4th grade. Yeah. 4th grade, I guess. Hold on, my computer's bugging out on me. Hold on. All right. So yeah, my daughter probably would have been in 4th grade. She rode every single ride there, every single one with me, in the front car. The front car. So she's never been scared of anything. But so anyway, she was having one of her friends spend the night Friday night this past weekend. My daughter was, Luann, as it were, was having one of her friends spend the night, and I said, "Hey, do y'all want to go to the haunted house?" And she was like, "Oh yeah." And I said, "Well, we got to call your friend's parents or whatever, because you know how it is. I mean, it's silly. I think it's silly, but you never know. Some people's parents don't like their kids doing certain things or whatever. You never know. So anyway, we called the kid's parents, and she had never been either, the friend, and they said yeah. And then her parents sent her a link to a YouTube video of the haunted house we were going to, and the girl watched it, and she was like, "Yeah, I'll go." So anyway, I took them to the haunted house Friday night, and they had a great time. So anyway, did that on Friday. Saturday, of course, college football, big win for the Dogs. Not a whole lot of other great games on Saturday other than that one. The Florida State-Miami game ended up being pretty important, of course, in terms of Willie Taggart's coaching future at Florida State. By that, I mean he doesn't have one. You all know by now, but he was fired yesterday after that loss to Miami. And so Florida State searching for a coach here. But anyway, so I had a great weekend. Yesterday I came out here, did the video. I was done with that by, I don't know, lunchtime or so. And didn't do anything the rest of the day. And it was great. It was great. I mean, literally nothing. Laid on the couch most of the day. I watched The Shining. I think I might have seen The Shining like a long time ago. I didn't remember much of it, though. So me and Mrs. Lou watched The Shining yesterday. And, you know, there's a sequel to that coming out in the theater, and that's why I wanted to see it again. When I took Lou Jr. to see The Joker a couple of weeks ago, they showed a preview for this movie called, what's it called? The Sleep Room, or what's it called? Somebody will, it's not The Sleep Room. What is it called? Maybe somebody knows and can type it into comments, but it's a sequel to The Shining. So I wanted to, and it comes out next week, and I wanted to, me and Miss Lou are going to go see it. So I wanted to see The Shining again before we go to see Dr. Sleep. Thank you, guys. Yeah, that's what it is. And for those of you that don't know, if you've seen The Shining, but you don't know anything about the new movie, Dr. Sleep, you remember the kid from The Shining? What was the kid's name? Somebody will tell us that in the comments, too. The little kid's name from The Shining? In this movie, he's grown. And I guess it's about his abilities or whatever that he has, you know, the shine or whatever. It's about that. And I guess he ends up going back to Danny. Yep. Geez, if it wasn't for you guys, this show wouldn't be very informative. I guess I could have looked some of this stuff up, but anyway. So this movie, the sequel, is Danny is, you know, whatever, my age now, 40s. And I guess he goes back to that hotel, the Hotel Overlook or whatever it was called. Anyway, it looks pretty good, so I wanted to see The Shining again. So me and Mrs. Lou watched that yesterday. I didn't watch any NFL football yesterday. I'm not a huge NFL fan. I don't have a team or whatever that I pull for in the NFL. But usually on Sundays, I'll watch at least a little bit of football. Maybe there's a player on that I want to watch that I liked in college or something like that. But I literally never even turned on a football game yesterday. I think that's the first Sunday I haven't watched any football at all. I didn't watch any of the noon game or the 1 o'clock games. I didn't watch any of the 4 o'clock games. Didn't watch any of the game last night. So I literally did as little yesterday, I think, as physically possible to do. Thank you, Christopher. Appreciate that. King Keaton, thank you for the super chat, sir. I appreciate that. He says, go Cats. Kentucky, I'm guessing. Does Kentucky play Tennessee this week? I haven't looked at any of the... Let's pull that up. Let's do that. Well, before we do that, shout out to, if you guys listened to, was it Friday's show? We had the guys on from the Color Rush podcast. So shout out to Color Rush podcast. They're sponsoring the morning show this month. So shout out to them. If you guys didn't hear them last week or don't know what it is, it's a college football podcast, but they take a little bit of a different approach. They do talk about the games. They do talk about players and X's and O's and who's going to win and lose and all those types of things. So it is 100% football related, but they come at it from a different angle. Anyway, they're college students. One of them goes to Texas A&M. They both live in or around College Station. One of them goes to Texas A&M. The other one, I think, goes to, they said, a smaller school, not Texas A&M, but in the same area. So anyway, they're college kids, nice guys, seem to know what they're talking about. I had them on Friday. I had one of them on Friday. It's two of them that do the podcast. And that reminds me, I might have forgot to put their links in the description of this video. Did I? Yeah. Let me add that real quick. I'll put the links to their podcast down in the description. But if you guys have some time today, check them out. It's one of those things where you start listening to them and you're like, how can they, and this happens to me a lot on YouTube. Something will show up in my recommended feed and I'm like, how can what am I looking for here? Oh my God, I get too many emails. But this happens to me on YouTube sometime. Something will show up in my recommended feed, and I'm like, how can there even be a whole video on this, much less an entire channel? And I'll fall down the rabbit hole. And where is it? Where is this at? Oh, here we go. And I'll fall down. I'll start watching the video, and before you know it, I've spent like, I don't know, 2 or 3 hours like watching whatever channel on YouTube. It happened to me yesterday with this YouTube channel. But this podcast is sort of the same way. When you first see it or first start listening to it, you're like, how can they make a whole podcast out of this? But it's pretty good. So just give it a try. I'm going to put the links to their podcast in the description here. I should have done this before, and I just forgot. Okay, so it's in the description now, but they're available on Spotify, Google Play, Podbean, all those places. Anyway, check them out. But let's pull this up, because we do have some good games coming up this week, and we're going to talk some more about Florida State and Willie Taggart. Who's going to get that job? I want to talk about that. The AAC conference has more teams ranked than any Power 5 conference other than the SEC and the Big Ten. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about Dan Mullet, too. And some of the early lines for the big games. We'll talk about that, too. But look at, let's pull this up. All right, here we go. All right, let's recap last week. A lot of this we already did. We already recapped the Thursday games. Hold on, this is top 25. Let's move it to all the games. We already did it. Saturday morning we talked about Thursday and Friday games, so we'll just go to Saturday. Clemson, no surprise, but Trevor Lawrence, no interceptions. Georgia, 24-17. The game was not as close as the score indicated. Sometimes the game is like Florida. I hear Florida fans have been telling me for a year. Last year we beat Florida by 3 touchdowns, 19 points. And Florida fans spent all offseason saying, yeah, the final score, you won by 19, but the game was really a lot closer than that. Like I think it was a 1-score game at some point in the fourth quarter or something, and they claimed moral victory for that. So the point is, the final score of a game doesn't always indicate how the game went. If you watched this game, then you know Georgia dominated this game on both sides of the ball. Georgia, really the only negative Georgia could take away from this game is that too many times in the first half, when they got down into Florida territory, they sort of bogged down a little bit and settled for, I think, too many field goals. They ended up kicking 3 field goals in this game. If a couple of those field goals would have been touchdowns instead of field goals, maybe the score was a little bit different. As far as the call in the first half with Lawrence Cager, any game I look at on this list right here that's a 1-score game, Utah and Washington. I didn't watch all of that game. I guarantee you I can find a call in that game somewhere that went against Washington that probably shouldn't have. Or a call that went for Utah that probably shouldn't have. Say Auburn, Ole Miss, same thing. SMU, Memphis, same thing. So the point is, anytime you have a game that ends within 1 score, there's something you can find somewhere in that game to point to. That touchdown pass that Florida had right on the goal line, I don't think that was a touchdown. It should have been 1st and goal on the inch line, I think. There was a catch that a Florida receiver made on the sideline. It looked to me like his heel clearly was out of bounds. They gave Florida the catch. There was several pass interference calls made in this game that I thought were ridiculous. There was the holding call on DeAndre Swift's touchdown run. you could technically call holding on every single play in football at every level. I'm a firm believer in that. So I'm of the opinion that a holding call needs to be egregious and have a direct impact on the play for it to be called. So anyway, the point is, when the game ends within a score, there's always something you can point to. So I don't, Florida fans want to keep going on and on about that one catch by Lawrence Cager or any other, whatever else they want to talk about. I can point to just as many things that went the other way. The conspiracy theory that's floating around that there was some sort of cabal within college football that is trying to this game was predetermined, that Georgia was going to win because they're trying to set up a Georgia versus Ohio State playoff game. That is completely ridiculous. I can't believe there are people that actually believe that. I just can't believe it. Why wouldn't they do the same thing with Alabama and Oklahoma? All right, let's look at Oklahoma's loss to Kansas State. Did y'all watch that game? Onside kick at the Oklahoma scores to get within one score. They need an onside kick to have a chance to win. They kick the onside kick. They recover it. They recover the onside kick. Oklahoma does. What wouldn't that just be it? Give Oklahoma the ball, let them score. That's what everyone wants. They want Hurts versus Tua. Nope. They review the play. They say that an Oklahoma player touched the ball before it went 10 yards. It went 9.5 yards. He touched it. It's got to go 10 yards before he touches it. Well, turns out the next day, the Big 12 comes out and says, nope, it actually should have been Oklahoma's ball because the Oklahoma player that touched the ball early was blocked into the ball. So it shouldn't have been illegal touching. It should have actually been Oklahoma's ball. So just in general, the idea that there's some man behind a curtain somewhere in college football, first of all, that would have the power or the authority or the ability to manipulate any game at all like that is just completely ridiculous. It's just completely ridiculous. I don't believe that the SEC favors Alabama. I don't believe that the referees are somehow in cahoots. People love to point out these calls that Alabama gets. I just think it happens. I mean, it just happens. There was some bad calls made in the Georgia-Alabama national championship game on both sides. I don't think the referees were somehow doing what they were told by making some sort of call to let Alabama win. That's just ridiculous. I don't buy into any of that. I don't buy into any of that at all. Oregon mollywopped Southern Cal. I think Clay Helton's going to get fired. USC just hired a new athletic director. Athletic directors in general like to handpick their own coaches. Clay Helton had one foot out the door before this season started. It hasn't gone well. They're sitting at 5-4 now. So I think he probably ends up getting fired. We'll see if I end up being right with my 1.5 long prediction of Urban Meyer to Southern Cal in 2020. We'll see. It's looking more and more likely, though, with every day that passes. Utah survived a scare from Washington, so Oregon and Utah both did what they needed to do. And each of those teams needs the other team to keep winning too. Oregon, if either one of these teams wants to have any shot to make the playoff, obviously they have to run the table and finish 12-1 with a Pac-12 title. But I think they need the other team. I think they need the team that they beat in the Pac-12 title game to also just have the one loss, so it looks like a really good win. I mean, regardless of what you think about the Pac-12, regardless of what you think about Oregon or Utah, if they both finish the regular season 11-1, they're going to be in the top 10. They're both in the top 10 now. So if either one of those teams has any shot at making a playoff, they've got to run the table, and they need the team that they beat in the Pac-12 title game to be 11-1, in my opinion. So they both survived these were tough spots for both of these teams. I mean, Southern Cal and Washington both, neither one of those teams I don't think are terrible. Southern Cal should be a lot better than they are. You have to base a team's record versus what it should be, right? So there's a lot of teams or coaches you look at and go, well, they're 5-4. Why would you fire the coach? Well, you wouldn't if you're Vandy or Tennessee. But if you're Southern Cal, you should be winning more. You know, it's unacceptable, really, in any year for Southern Cal to have 4 losses. It just is. They should be dominating the Pac-12 year in and year out. So I think he's got to go. But those were both dangerous games. Both teams survived. We'll see what they do the rest of the way. Auburn got a scare from Ole Miss. Ole Miss had the ball around the 50-yard line at the end of that game with a chance to win, really, with a touchdown and an extra point, but they just couldn't get anything going. They got the ball up to about midfield, and then on the last play of the game, that John Rice Plumlee, whatever his name is, ran around like a chicken with his head cut off and chunked the ball to nobody, and the game was over. Boy, this Michigan, look at this Michigan here. This is looking just like last year. Michigan gets all the hype heading into the season. They crap to bed in the first half of the season. Everybody writes them off. And then in the second half of the season, it's like something clicks and they start blowing everybody out. This is exactly what happened last year, if you guys remember. Michigan blew everybody out the last half of October and November. Ohio State was struggling, and everybody picked Michigan to beat them, and Ohio State blows them out at the end of the regular season. This season's setting up to be the exact same way. SMU took its first loss to Memphis. A lot of one-loss Power 5 teams. Who's going to get in the New Year's Six Bowl? I mean, you got a lot of good Group of 5 teams here. SMU and Memphis now both with 1 loss. Cincinnati 1 loss. Boise State 1 loss. It's going to be App State. Appalachian State 1 loss. What if Appalachian State beats South Carolina? That would be one of the better wins that any Group of 5 team has. Could App State end up getting into the New Year's Six Bowl? It's going to be interesting to keep an eye on that. Notre Dame survived at Virginia. Notre Dame trailed that entire game until they scored a touchdown with 30 seconds to go. So they escaped with a win against Virginia Tech. Cincinnati got a scare from East Carolina, but they remain with just a 1 loss. Now, Cincinnati probably has the best loss of any 1-loss team. Their only loss is to Ohio State. Boise State won again. Kansas State beat the Jesus out of Kansas. Can Kansas get to 4 wins? I don't know. They haven't had 4 wins in like a decade. They're sitting at 3 wins right now. We'll see. Wake Forest still with the 1 loss. No one cares. They're not a good team. They play Clemson in a couple of weeks. They'll probably get blown out. UCF, people forget they even have a team now. Pit of misery. Dilly. Same thing with Nebraska. What a disappointment Nebraska has been this year. No excuse for that. Texas A&M roll, but man, they got a brutal schedule the rest of the way. They still have to play LSU and Georgia, and I think they play both of them on the road. I think they do. I know they play Georgia on the road. I think they play LSU on the road too. Let's see. Yeah, look at this. So they're off this week. They host South Carolina. That's not a gimme for Texas A&M. Now, Texas A&M has owned South Carolina. Texas A&M has never lost to South Carolina since they joined the Texas A&M and South Carolina play every year. That's the cross-division game for each team. So South Carolina and Texas A&M play every year, and South Carolina has yet to beat them. So we'll see if that continues. But then they close the season out after that at Georgia and at LSU. So I don't know if there's a team in America who has a tougher 2-game stretch to end the season than that. That's pretty brutal. Anything else here? No. Miami and Florida State. Jesus. Oklahoma State over TCU. TCU plays Texas this week. I was going to talk about that in a minute. Texas is only a 1-point favorite in that game. Man, what has happened to Texas? And more importantly, what happened to Deep Barat? You guys remember him? Man, since January we've been hearing from this Deep Barat. This guy has taken a long walk off a short bridge. Nobody's seen this guy in 3 weeks. What a shame. The new Gamecock Steve, this Deep Barat. I liked him too. What a shame. Georgia Tech lost again. Tennessee's back. If you don't believe me, ask one of their fans. South Carolina rolled over Vandy. Virginia over North Carolina. I actually thought North Carolina was going to win that game. Yeah, and that's really it. That's really it. DG, thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate that. He says if Harbaugh loses to OSU, he'll be in FSU next year. You think so? You think Florida State will go after Harbaugh? We'll see. King Keaton says Bama beats LSU. Well, let's talk about that. That's obviously the big game. That's this week's game of the century. Seems like every week there's a different game of the century. This week it's LSU at Bama. How many of y'all know what the line is on this game? I looked some of these things up this morning. What do y'all think Bama's favored by? Do y'all even think Bama's favored? We know Bama's favored. It's at Bama. But what do y'all think the line is on that game? LSU at Bama. We also have Penn State at Minnesota, 2 undefeated teams. Yeah, it's -7. Bama's a 7-point home favorite right now. We'll see it. We'll see if that changes any. But right now, or at least when I looked it up at about 6 o'clock this morning, it may have changed. I don't know. And I guess it could be different depending on where you look. But it was -7 this morning. Penn State at Minnesota. Minnesota feels disrespected, especially by me. I haven't given them any credit at all. We'll see. If they beat Penn State this week, you won't be able to ignore Minnesota anymore. So we'll see. Penn State's a 6.5-point road favorite at Minnesota. 2 Big Ten teams, both undefeated. So, I mean, these 2 games, 4 undefeated Power 5 teams. Bama hosting LSU, Minnesota hosting Penn State. Missouri at Georgia. Big win this past weekend against a rivalry game. Everybody was doubting Georgia heading into that game. They end up getting a big win over a top 10 team. Do they celebrate or do they prepare for Missouri? We'll find out. Georgia's a 14.5-point favorite in that one. Iowa State at Oklahoma. This was interesting to me. What do y'all think the line is on that game? Iowa State at Oklahoma. What do y'all think the line is there? And then we have Baylor at TCU. Oh, I think I said Texas was playing TCU, but did I look that up wrong? Because I have written down Baylor at TCU. Maybe I got that wrong. Anyway, what do y'all think the line is Iowa State at Oklahoma? And RC3 says Oklahoma -14. When I looked it up this morning, it was 13.5. OU by 13.5 at home against Iowa State. Man, how lucky is Oklahoma that they don't have to play at Iowa State? Of course, we all know you can't win at Iowa State. There's that one Oklahoma YouTuber that has spent 2 years trying to explain that to people. You can't win at Iowa State. Luckily for the land thief, they get Iowa State at home this year. Oklahoma hosting that game against the Cyclones. They're a 13.5-point favorite. And let me see if I looked this up wrong. Baylor at TCU. Because I think I said TCU was playing Texas, but that doesn't make any sense because they already played Texas. Yes, Baylor plays TCU. Baylor's undefeated, right? Yeah, they are. TCU's got 4 losses. TCU's 4-4. Baylor's undefeated. TCU is 4-4. Baylor's undefeated. Baylor at TCU. What do y'all think the line is on that one? Baylor at TCU. And let me ask you this. Who's better? Who do you think is better right now, Baylor or Minnesota? Those are the 2 teams that aren't really getting the respect, right? There's 7 undefeated Power 5 teams. 7. 5 of them are ranked 1 through 5. The other 2 aren't even in the top 10. Baylor's a 1-point favorite in that one. Baylor's a 1-point favorite. But who's better, Baylor or Minnesota? Baylor? Yeah, I tend to lean towards Baylor, too. I can't get over – I know teams can get better from week to week. Georgia has gotten better as the season has gone along, each of the last 2 seasons. I mean, I understand teams get better over the course of the year. Maybe I just can't get past Minnesota's first 2 or 3 games of the year when they barely beat some really bad teams. Bobby, don't do that. Don't spam the comments like that. It's irritating. And then then no one else's comment can be seen. So then everyone else starts doing that. So just type the comment one time. If I see it, I'll reply to it. Or you can super chat. I always see those. But I think you asked about Kentucky and Tennessee. I didn't look the lineup on that game. Let me look it up right now for you. Let's look here. I didn't look that one up. My guess would be that Tennessee's favored. Where's the game? I guess if it's at Tennessee, I would guess that Tennessee is favored by about 6 points. If it's at Kentucky, I would say Tennessee was favored by 3. So I don't even know where the game's at, but so let me look it up. All right, I'm looking, scrolling through. Boston College is only favored by 2 over a Florida State team with no head coach. That's interesting. South Carolina's a 3.5-point favorite at home against App State. What do y'all think about that one? Can App State pull that off? Penn State 6.5 over Minnesota. We already talked about that. Florida's favored by 25 over Vandy. Bama LSU's down to 6 points now, so there was some people typing that in the comments, and Alabama's only a 6-point favorite now. Kentucky is favored by 2.5. I would take Tennessee. I'm not a believer in Tennessee as far as them, they've suddenly figured something out and turned some kind of a corner and are ready to dominate everybody they play or anything like that. But Kentucky has just been really, really bad the last few weeks. Their quarterback situation is a mess. And Tennessee's got some confidence right now. It doesn't matter whether we buy into what Tennessee has done the last couple of weeks. That's not nearly as important as how the team. Confidence can go a long way with a team. I think y'all would agree there. Confidence can go a long way in terms of helping a team out. And Tennessee hasn't had a whole lot of confidence in themselves, I don't think, over the last few years. But I think they've picked up some confidence over the last 2 weeks. And again, doesn't matter whether we think they're some sort of elite team now that's turned a corner or whatever. I think they've got a lot of confidence in themselves now. I could see Tennessee winning this game, and I'm kind of surprised that they're a 2.5-point underdog. But they are. It's at Kentucky. I guess you usually get about 3 points for being the home team. So if it was in Tennessee, I guess Tennessee would be favored by 0.5 point. So I'll have to decide by tomorrow when I do the SEC preview. That's an interesting game. But off the top of my head, without looking into it at all, I would lean Tennessee in that game. What about y'all though? I don't know. Marcus Robinson, thank you for the super chat. Georgia's team is constructed to combat these high-powered offenses when they are executing. Best defense in America. Yeah, Georgia's defense is the real deal. I don't see how anybody can have any doubt about Georgia's defense at all. They haven't had a bad game all year. They've played well every single week. Still the only team in America that hasn't given up a rushing touchdown all year. They've played really, really well this year. Marcus Aurelius from Gladiator. Thank you for the super chat. River Cats beat the Mutts Saturday for an upset. River Cats. Is that what the Missouri Tigers are, the River Cats? Well, Missouri is what, 1-7 against Georgia since joining the SEC? Soon to be 1-8. They're not going to win in Athens. Rob W., how do you pick your page's mods? There's no scientific method. I only pick people whose name I know, names I see in here a lot. I have to know I have to know what team they're a fan. It has to be somebody that's been around long enough and comments enough and is active enough on here to where when I see their name, I recognize it. I know who they're a fan of. They're not a 9-year-old troll who post elementary school gay jokes or whatever in the comments section all the time, but there's not really any rhyme. Not really any rhyme or reason. I try to pick people from all different fan bases. So there's Georgia mods, there's Tennessee mods, there's a Georgia Tech mod, there's Florida mods. There's mods from all over. And Lewis Smith, thank you for the super chat. Who wins it all and why? If I had to put my last dollar on one team right now to win it all, it would be Ohio State. To me, they've been the most complete team. They haven't played bad on either side of the ball in any game that they've played all year long. They've got the best player in college football in Chase Young. They have a dynamic, game-changing, playmaking Heisman candidate quarterback in Justin Fields. They've got one of the best running backs in football in J.K. Dobbins. They've got multiple NFL wide receivers. They're loaded at every position group on both sides of the ball. And like I said, there hasn't been a single game you can point to with Ohio State and say, well, they won, but their offense played bad. Or they won, but their offense and their defense have played at an elite level every single week of the year. You can't say that about Clemson. You can't say that about Alabama. You can't say that about LSU. And you can't say that about Penn State. That doesn't mean those other teams I just named aren't any good. Those are the best 5 teams, period. So all of those teams are elite, and any of those teams I think is capable of winning it all. But if I had to pick one right now, it would be Ohio State. Christian Fields, thank you for the super chat. SEC Shorts with another great video. Check it. Yeah, I watch their stuff every week. Those guys are hilarious. I wish I had the patience, I guess, to do what they do, because they see. I get an idea in my head, I do it right then and there. I post way too many videos to ever put out anything like they put out. I mean, it takes. I can tell you from doing what I do, and I can watch their video. I can tell you it takes them not hours but days to make those videos, and you can tell when you watch them. They're very highly produced. They spend a lot of money on what they do, and they do it well. I have a lot of respect for those guys. Almost every single video they make is amazing. I mean, they do great work over there at SEC Shorts. Bears, Cubs, Canes, thank you for the super chat, sir. Shout out to the Canes fans. Yes, we're not good, but a big W for us. Lou, did you hear from your buddy Simmons? LOL. Who is Simmons? I'm drawing a blank on who that is. There aren't a whole lot of Florida State. I mean, there are Florida State fans who watch this channel because every time I make a Florida State video, they show up in the comment section to cry or call me a racist for wanting Willie Taggart fired 6 months ago. But they're not as active overall as the Miami fans are. Like, there are several Miami fans I can think of just right off the top of my head that are in here all the time. They call into the live shows. They're in the chat section all the time on the live shows. I see them in the comment section on all the videos. There's definitely more Miami fans active on this channel than Florida State fans. Doesn't mean there aren't any Florida State fans. Just for whatever reason, the Miami fans seem to be a little bit more active. And I found that to be the case just in YouTube in general. There's a bunch of Miami Hurricanes channels on YouTube. There's not a whole lot of Florida State channels. I don't really know why that is. It just sort of seems to be Noel Daddy, I know you're here. And I don't mean there aren't any Florida State fans. It's just they're for whatever reason, it seems like there are, and that's not a knock on Florida State. Hell, there's more. A lot of times there's more Tennessee fans on here than there is Georgia fans on here. So I'm not. That's not a knock on Florida State. I just happen to, off the top of my head, I can think of several Miami fans, or more Miami fans than I can Florida State fans. That definitely doesn't mean there aren't any here. I know there's a lot here, because like I said, I see them a lot when I do the Florida State videos. All right, time for LouTube history. This one is from the Wayback Machine we're in November now. So all the videos I take during my pee break. If you're new to the morning show, I drink way too much coffee in the morning. When I do the nighttime shows, I go uninterrupted. Sometimes 2 hours I'll sit out here with these nighttime shows. In the morning shows, I can't do that. I'd have to have a bowl out here to pee in or something to do that. I figured that out after the first morning show I did, because I drink way too much coffee out here in the morning. So instead of just showing you a blank screen or playing music for 3 minutes while I go inside to pee so I don't make a mess, I find something from the Uncle Lou Wayback machine and play it for you. It's probably, now keep in mind when this channel first started, it wasn't really a football channel, so some of these videos are a little weird, and don't judge Uncle Lou on what you see on those old videos. But let's see what I found for you today. This one is from November of 2014. Enjoy in that.
Oh, good morning. Uncle Lou here. How's everybody doing? Sure you're doing good? Yep, time to make another video here. This is what everybody waits on every week here. But this is Uncle Lou's weekly update on this year's Moral Victory Bowl featuring Tennessee and Arkansas. Once again, if you don't know what this is, you haven't been watching Uncle Lou every day like you're supposed to. Please correct that problem immediately or sooner if you can. That would be great. Yep. So, yeah, this game, of course, played every year at Wrigley Field, home of the Lovable Losers, sponsored by Dollar General. Dollar General Moral Victory Bowl featuring Tennessee and Arkansas. Interesting developments this past weekend. That's right. Arkansas with another amazing moral victory. Just unbelievable. I mean, they really should be proud of themselves. And once again, if you watched Brett Bielema's post-game press conference, then you already know that, yes, they are proud. That's right. They love moral victories, and they got another one against the number one team in the country, 17-10 to Mississippi State. Yep. And, of course, Tennessee reached into the bag of tricks and got an actual victory. Unbelievable. But yes, that's right. They did win. They actually had a real win at South Carolina. An amazing game. They put a quarterback in, Dobbs, and found a way to win a game. It's just mind-boggling. However, Tennessee gets no credit in terms of moral victories for this game, as they got an actual victory. In order to get a moral victory, you have to almost win or lose by less than expected, which Arkansas has been mastering week in and week out. Yep. But anyway, the updated line on this game. Now, this game started with Tennessee being a 6-point favorite, moved down to a 3-point favorite. Last week it was a pick'em, an even game. Gonna go ahead and make Arkansas the favorite this week. That's right, they're currently a 2-point favorite over Tennessee in the Moral Victory Bowl, which is just unbelievable and amazing. So congratulations, Arkansas, you're moving up here. So, and I do think Arkansas is going to get an actual victory this year. And guess what? It's going to be against Mizzou, which is great for Uncle Lou and great for Georgia fans, as we need Mizzou to lose another game. In fact, we possibly need Mizzou to lose 2 games, which probably won't be a problem. They've lost to Indiana. That's all I need to know about Missouri. I don't see any way they win. They win their last 3 games. They've got to play Tennessee. Who else do they play? I think they play. Who does Missouri play? Tennessee, Arkansas, and forget who else it is. Texas A&M maybe. But anyway, there's no way they're going to win all 3 of those games. I'm already going ahead and picking it now. Arkansas is going to beat them. So that's the one loss UJ needs them to have. Of course, unless UJ loses another game, then we need Missouri to lose 2 games, which is very possible because they're Mizzou. And they're just a terrible team. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. So, yep, no worries there. So, that's the update on the Moral Victory Bowl. Congratulations to Tennessee on getting an actual victory. Sorry that I couldn't bump you up in the Moral Victory Bowl, but actual victories don't do anything to help you for the Moral Victory Bowl, which is probably fine with you. You'd probably rather have an actual victory. So, yep, Arkansas 2-point favorite in this year's Dollar General Moral Victory Bowl, played live at Wrigley Field, home of the lovable losers. Yep. So, Georgia's got Kentucky this week. And it's a football game. So, that guy what makes the Kentucky videos, I know basketball season starts in a week or two, something like that, but he's under the impression that this is a basketball game that's coming Saturday. He actually thinks Kentucky's gonna win. Newsflash, you're not. It wasn't even a week ago you were making videos about how Kentucky was gonna win the East. Sad and pathetic, sir. You got housed by Missouri, which is embarrassing. We all know how good they are. They're not good at all. So, yeah, Georgia's going to go up there, put that whooping on you. Shouldn't be too hard for us to go ahead and do that. Your video where you did an Uncle Lou impersonation, not very good, sir. Do Uncle Lou a favor. Go ahead and put on a tinfoil hat and a cheap pair of sunglasses and try again, sir. Practice makes perfect, or in your case, practice makes at least a little bit better than what you did the first time. So go ahead and do that for me, please. Thanks in advance. Yep, you guys are going down, no problem. This is our last game before we get Gurley back. Then, of course, we have to play Auburn. Talk about that next week. But anyway, until next time, go Dogs, and good morning to...
Yeah. Video's come a long way since then. You know, a couple of things about that video that I noticed while rewatching it again just now. Number one, Mizzou did not lose another game that year, and Georgia was unable to back its way into the SEC championship game. And what a typical year 2014 was for a Mark Richt Georgia team, right? Mizzou was the best team in the East that year. We beat the bejesus out of them. But then we lose to pointless other teams that we were favored to beat and end up not winning the East because Mizzou did, in fact, win their last 3 games and win the East before they got blown out in the SEC championship game. That's the first thing I noticed when listening to that video. The other thing I noticed when listening to that video back just now, that video was 5 years ago. 5 years ago, 2014. The premise of that video was Arkansas versus Tennessee. I named it a Moral Victory Bowl, sponsored by the Dollar General, and I said they ought to play this game at Wrigley Field, the biggest losers in history. Well, fast forward 5 years from now, the Chicago Cubs have won a World Series, and Tennessee and Arkansas are still 2 of the worst teams in the SEC 5 years ago to now. So some things have changed. The Cubs won a World Series. Some things have not changed. Arkansas and Tennessee still 2 of the worst teams in the SEC. So maybe they can meet again at the end of this season for another Moral Victory Bowl, although it appears as though Tennessee might make an actual bowl. Hold on a second. Somebody's knocking on the garage. Hold on. What is this? Some stalker. Hold on a second. I don't know what to put up on the screen for you. Well, I have to turn some music on for a second. I don't know what's going on here. I'll be right back. Well, you won't believe this. It was Eric Simmons from the comments section yesterday. No, I'm just kidding. It was the pest control company, but I don't know why they're bothering me. I'm in here working. Just spray the damn yard. Leave me alone. I'm going to need some pest control to get rid of the pest control people. Anyway, forgot what I was talking about, and to be honest, it doesn't really matter at this point. Yeah. What was I talking about? Oh, yeah, Arkansas and Tennessee, still two of the worst teams. Anyway, shout out to Eric Simmons, by the way. I'm assuming he's on the way. I'll keep you guys updated. What was I saying? Oh, okay. Let's Florida State. God, stay. Florida State. Who's the coach going to be next year? Now, as far as Urban Meyer and Bob Stoops, you're going to hear those two names for every job that opens. So, I don't think either one of those two guys are taking a Florida State job. I'll just be honest. But you're going to hear those two names about every single job opening because those are the two most high-profile coaches who have had ultimate success. Both of those coaches won national titles, and they're both currently unemployed. So you're just going to hear those names every single time any job comes open. I don't think either one of those two are taking the job at Florida State. So who will take the job? Well, here's some names. Kendall Briles. He's the current offensive coordinator. Now, I'm not so sure this would be a smart move. I don't know how many Florida State fans or boosters or whatever would get behind that. Because isn't he part of the problem now? Florida State's offense is terrible. Now, I think this is his first year there, and the word on the street is that Willie Taggart is not really letting Kendall Briles have 100% control of the offense. Kendall Briles has had success at other places as an OC. Baylor, FAU, Houston. I mean, he's considered a good young offensive mind. I just don't know. Considering how bad things went for Florida State this year, you fire your coach halfway through the season. It's just hard for me to imagine that the administration would promote anybody currently on that staff. I'm busy. Fine, just go away. Spray the yard, and that's it. What? No. Yeah, great. So I don't think they even offered a job to Kendall Briles. That's just my opinion. But he is being talked about. What? Now, I saw this name floating around. And I'm wondering, because I'm assuming there's some Miami fans watching, right? I know there's at least a few. I heard this name floating around for the Florida State job. Butch Davis. Now, he had some success at Miami. I mean, he built one of the greatest college football rosters of all time when he was at Miami in the late 90s and early 2000s. But he's 67 years old, and he wasn't running the cleanest ship known to man at Miami. I'm not getting into all that. It doesn't matter now, but I can't imagine Florida State going down that road. But his name is showing up. Both the Clemson coordinators' names are showing up, the offensive and the defensive. Well, I guess he's a co-offensive coordinator, Tony Elliott. He's a young guy, at least, 39. He played at Clemson, though. I don't want to get into this debate about Dabo going to Alabama when Saban quits or retires. I don't think that's going to happen. I think Clemson winning 2 national titles, I don't think he leaves there now. But if he does, I think Tony Elliott would be somebody that Clemson would look at to take Dabo's place. So, but that's a whole 6 degrees of separation thing, depending on what happens with Alabama and how long that is, whatever. So, but I don't know if Tony Elliott is willing to leave Clemson right now to take the job at Florida State. I mean, it's within the same conference. I just don't know about that. And Brent Venables, I heard a rumor yesterday from one of these trusty, reliable Facebook/Twitter news sources that you know who I'm talking about. That Florida State administration called Brent Venables yesterday morning before they actually made the announcement to fire Willie Taggart. Brent Venables has been offered a ton of jobs. He showed little to no interest in any of them. It does seem to me that at some point Brent Venables would want to test himself and see what he could do as a head coach. I don't know if that will be right now at Florida State, though. Luke Fickell is an interesting name. Somebody should go get Luke Fickell. Luke Fickell deserves a Power 5 job, I think. Defensive coordinator at Ohio State under Urban Meyer through 2017. So in 2018, when Ohio State had the defensive issues, he was gone. Where did he go? He went to Cincinnati. Cincinnati was not very good before Luke Fickell got there in 2017. In 2018, his first year there, they went 11-2. Cincinnati went 11-2 under Luke Fickell in his first year, 2018. Finished in the top 25. They're currently 7-1 in his second year. Their only loss, like we talked about earlier, is to Ohio State. And they're ranked 17th. Somebody should go get Luke Fickell. Somebody. Of the names we've been through so far, I would pick him over any of the other people we've talked about so far. P.J. Fleck, another one of these young. I mean, P.J. Fleck, Matt Campbell at Iowa State, Brom at Purdue, Duran, whatever his name is at NC State. These are names that sort of get mentioned all the time. I don't know. I think right now with Minnesota being 8-0, he's not going to want to entertain the idea of even talking to another school. He's 8-0, so I don't know about that. I saw Justin Fuente on a list. Justin Fuente needs a demotion, not a promotion. I mean, he's at Virginia Tech, and he's driving them into the ground. He won 10 games his first year there. It's gone downhill ever since there at Virginia Tech. He was at Memphis. They had an amazing offense. Virginia Tech hires him. He wins 10 games. People are happy as hell, and it's been a nosedive since then. Going from Virginia Tech to Florida State, regardless of how bad Florida State is now, that's a promotion. That's a step up. Fuente might need a step down. So I don't know about that either. Josh Heupel gets mentioned all the time at UCF. I like that too. I like him. Lane Kiffin, of course, gets mentioned. I do think Lane Kiffin is an elite offensive mind. Now, he comes with a lot of baggage. His personality rubs a lot of people wrong. I love trolls. You guys know that. The more creative, the better. So I'm not downing trolls at all. I'm just not sure a college football head coach that's making millions of dollars a year should be a troll. And that's what Lane Kiffin is. He's a Twitter troll. And I'm just not sure that the knock on Lane Kiffin has always been maturity. Everywhere he's been. Maturity. I'm not sure you can convince very many people you've matured when you're spending half your time. You're a college football head coach. I get it. It's not a Power 5 job, but still, you're a college football head coach, and you spend half your free time trolling on Twitter. I'm just not sure lessons have been learned there. And then Urban Meyer and Bob Stoops we already mentioned. So other than those names that I went through, so besides Kendall Briles, Butch Davis, Tony Elliott, Luke Fickell, P.J. Fleck, Justin Fuente, Josh Heupel, Lane Kiffin, Urban Meyer, Bob Stoops, who else? Is there anyone else Florida State should consider? Who else should they consider? I don't know. Taggart 100% deserved to be fired, too. I'm hearing some people say, I can't believe this is This is setting a bad example. You fire a coach halfway through his second season. He's for every year that Florida State keeps Willie Taggart, it's going to take 3 years to fix it. He's that bad. So you're already now looking at least a 3-year turnaround for Florida State. He hasn't signed a quarterback. How's that possible? Willie Taggart hasn't signed a quarterback in 2 recruiting classes at Florida State. Ask yourself this. What is Florida State's biggest issue over the last 2 seasons besides offensive line? Because our offensive line is horrible. It's quarterback. He's just been terrible. He's 9-12 at Florida. That's unacceptable at Florida State. The ACC is terrible. The ACC is absolutely horrible outside of Clemson, and Florida State is 9-12 in the last 2 seasons. That is pitiful. He lost both his games to Miami. That's unacceptable at Florida State. Last year he finished 6th. 6th. Not 6th in the ACC, 6th in the Atlantic. 6th in the Atlantic in the ACC. Pitiful. Florida State is currently 5th. So he 100% deserved to be fired. And Florida State made the right move. The longer they kept him there, the longer it was going to take to dig out from the hole he's creating. So they had to let him go. Lost to Florida last year. That's his other rival. He's going to lose to Florida again this year. Listen, we can clown Florida all we want. I do it all the time. Florida is a top 10 team. Florida is a top 10 team. You know, who have Georgia played? Hey Lou, who has Georgia played? Who had to play? Florida is a top 10 team. Florida's a good team. They're going to beat the hell out of Florida State. And you got even some Florida fans now. Oh, well, we don't. You only beat Florida because Florida this, Florida. Florida's a good team. Just stop. Georgia's just better, okay? Florida is a good team. They'll beat Florida State, no problem. Why couldn't Dan Mullen win a division at Mississippi State? What do we hear all the time? Oh, well, it's in the SEC West. What do you expect him to do? Win a division in the SEC West? The SEC West is brutal. It's way harder than the East. Way harder than the East. Who has Dan Mullen lost to since he's been at Florida? Where have Dan Mullen's losses occurred since he's been at Florida? Georgia. Kentucky. LSU. At Florida, Dan Mullen has 1 loss to the SEC West. He's lost 1 game. He's 3-1 against the West. He was 2-0 against the West last year. He's 1-1 against the West this year. If there's any South Carolina fans watching, that's 3-1. He has 3 losses to the East, though. How's that possible? The West is too hard. Dan Mullen can't win in the West. The West is too hard, Lou. Well, he's 3-1 against the West. 75% of his losses are against the East. So, tell me more, though. Tell me more, tell me more, tell me more about the Florida man, Dan Mullen. He just needs 7 or 8 more years, and 7 or 8 more recruiting classes, and then he might be able to finish second in the East instead of third in the East. What if Florida gets blown out for the 3rd year in a row by Missouri in a couple of weeks? Missouri and Florida are tied for second place in the East right now. What if Missouri blows Florida out for the 3rd year in a row and Florida finishes 3rd in the East again under Dan Mullen? Will Florida fan finally realize at that point that Dan Mullen is an average head coach and a below-average recruiter? That's what he is. He's an average head coach and a below-average recruiter. Oh, but he had like the 10th or 11th recruiting class in the nation last year. How can you say he's a below-average recruiter? Well, number one, half of that recruiting class either never enrolled at Florida or has already quit the program. So if you take that into account, he didn't even have a top 20 class last year. But just assume he did have the 10th or 11th best class last year in America. Guess what? That's like 5th in the SEC. 6th. I mean, you're getting out-recruited by all the teams that you're chasing. You're getting out-recruited by Georgia, Bama, LSU. Hell, you're getting out-recruited by Auburn and Texas A&M. You're the 6th best recruiting class in the SEC. You know? Dan Mullen's best year, he's only had one. And here's the other thing, too, that Florida fans will do sometimes. They act like all the time he's spent at Mississippi State just somehow doesn't count, right? You've heard them say this, right? Well, you can't count Mississippi State because Mississippi State is terrible. Never mind the fact that Mississippi State won the SEC West before Dan Mullen got there, but couldn't win it with Dan Mullen. Never mind that. None of that counts. You can't hold that against him, right? Every time I say Dan Mullen's been a head coach in the SEC for a decade and can't win a division. Oh, well, yeah, but that most of that was at Mississippi State. You can't count that. Okay, fine. Don't count his time at Mississippi State then. Just pretend that didn't happen. If that's the case, then Dan Mullen's best year, he finished 2nd in the East. He finished 3rd in the East that last year. Because that's all you can count if you can't count Mississippi State. So Dan Mullen's best year, he finished 3rd in the East. Kirby Smart's best year, he won the East, won the SEC, won a playoff game. Butch friggin' Jones finished 2nd in the East in 2016. Lyle Jones finished 2nd in the East in 2016. He has a better season on his resume than Dan Mullen. So maybe if they get blown out by Mizzou for the 3rd year in a row, the 2nd year in a row under Dan Mullen, maybe Florida fan will realize that Dan Mullen ain't all he's cracked up to be. Maybe. I don't know. I'm just asking. Like I said, I do think Florida is a good team. I think they're a top 10 team again. They might win 9 or 10 games again. But they can't beat Georgia. They can't win the division. And that's not likely to change, in my opinion. I guess it's possible that if Fromm goes to the NFL after this year and Georgia's quarterback situation falls on its face, maybe Florida would have a chance next year. I think the more time that goes by this season, the less likely it is that Fromm leaves after this year, though. I don't think Fromm's done anything this year to increase his stock in the NFL. If anything, I think he's hurt it. I'm not knocking Fromm. I'm just saying. I don't know. I've never been sold on the idea that Fromm is an elite NFL quarterback. So, but I think if enough teams show interest and, he's projected as a first rounder, obviously I think he'll probably go pro. But if he comes back next year, I don't see how Florida fans expect to beat Georgia next year. I mean, Fromm owns you. He's 3-0 against you. And you can spend a whole nother year, saying whatever you want about him, and I will too. He owns Florida, though. I mean, there's just no denying that. Is Emory Jones not any good? I'm honestly asking. Is Emory Jones, is he just not any good? we know that Dan Mullen wants a running quarterback. We know that. That's why Felipe Franks was the starting quarterback and not Kyle Trask, because anybody with any sense can clearly see that Kyle Trask can throw the ball better than Felipe Franks, right? So we know he wants a running quarterback, and we know that he'll play a running quarterback even if that running quarterback isn't quite as good as Kyle Trask. So Emory Jones must be really bad, right? I mean, he must be really, really bad. Oh, more bad news if you're a Florida fan or anyone who has to play Georgia next year. You can point at Fromm and say, oh, if you lose Fromm, this or that. Guess what we're losing off the defense? Nothing. Nothing. A couple of DBs that are going to get replaced by guys that are better. So if you think Georgia's defense is good this year, we're not losing anything along the front. Jordan Davis will be back. Trayvon Walker will be back. Nolan Smith will be back. Adam Anderson, Nakobe Dean, Otis Reese, Channing Tindall, DJ Daniel. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on. You know, all the stuff that everyone has said about Georgia's wide receivers this year will be the exact opposite next year, because we're not losing any of them. We'll lose Cager, but Cager is only the best receiver on our team because he's the only receiver with any experience. That's it. He's slow as molasses, Cager is, but he's got a ton of experience. Everyone else will be back. Now, D-Rob's a junior. Ask yourself if he's done enough to go pro after this year. No. So he'll be back. George Pickens will be back. Blaylock will be back. Zeus at running back, because Swift is gone. Swift and Harrion are gone. But listen, if there's anybody that I don't think anybody is dumb enough to go, oh, Georgia's offense ain't going to be good next year because they're losing 2 running backs. I don't think it. Listen, 2018 last year proved to me, and it should have proved to you, it doesn't matter who Georgia puts at running back. It almost doesn't matter. Elijah Holyfield had over 1,000 yards. Okay? And he's not any good. So, you know, because I'm already hearing the same thing from Florida fan that I heard this time last year. Enjoy this one, because this will be the last one. Who thinks... Okay, let me ask you this. If Fromm comes back next year, do you honestly believe Georgia will be better or worse in 2020 than they are in 2019? The only hope anyone in the East has next year is if Fromm leaves and whatever quarterback we replace him with ends up not being any good. That's the only hope anyone in the East. If you wanted to win the East, this was the year to do it, not next year. Our defense is ridiculously young, and it's the best in America. Our wide receivers, same thing. Running backs, I have no worry there. Now, offensive line, we've recruited amazing across the offensive line, so we've got a ton of talent, but we're going to have a lot of new faces. We're going to lose Andrew Thomas for sure. 100%. He's a junior, but he'll be a top 5 pick. He's the best left tackle in college football, period. So, I don't know. Just ask yourself that. Let's see. Eric Simmons from yesterday on the comment section that wanted your address. Yeah, I was making a joke about that. Thank you for the super chat, Bears, Cubs, Canes. I gave him my cell phone number. He never messaged me, so not sure what the issue is. DJ Doom, Ray, for some reason, whatever comment you left in the super chat got cut off and I can't read it. You don't have to send another super chat. I'm looking in the comment section right now. Just whatever comment you put for your super chat, just put it in the comment section so I can see it. Because for some reason, this is like the third stream in the last week that it's done this. It cuts off the last super chat to where I can't see it. I don't know what has happened to this YouTube live streaming page. So, but I'm looking in the comment section now. So if you'll just type that comment again in the regular comment section, I can see it and respond to it. Ohio State and Georgia has the best defenses in college. Definitely 2 of the top 5. Noah says, I think Kendall Milton will be our starting running back next year. Maybe. I've still got hope and faith in Zeus. If you look at Nick Chubb's injury, it was his second year where he really started to take off after that injury. He wasn't the same year 1 coming back as he was year 2, and I'm hoping that DJ says, LOL, all good. Well, I guess you don't want to retype it, but I can't. Whatever you typed, I can't see it. So, but if you don't want to retype it, that's fine too. But thank you for the super chat. Jarvis, Zach Evans to Bama. Maybe we'll see. Milton will learn behind Zeus. I mean, we'll play 2 or 3 running backs next year like we do this year. So, I don't know if it'll be like a 1A and 1B type situation like we had with Chubb and Michelle, or if someone will be the clear front runner like we have this year with Swift. We really don't have a 1B this year. It's pretty much Swift 1A, Harry and 2, Zeus 3, I think. What about Kenny McIntosh? I mean, I like Kenny McIntosh and James Cook. I don't think they're not running backs in the traditional sense. To me, they're more gimmicky players, third down players, slot players. I don't think they're a first down, run it up the middle player. I don't think James Cook is that. I don't think Kenny McIntosh is that. Maybe they'll get bigger. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think either one of those guys is a first down running back. Okay, DJ, now I can see your comment because somebody else left one. Since Aunt Lou started making videos, 1980 is 0-5 versus Bama. Good job, sir. Okay. Seth Rutherford, now I can't see your comment. Let me scroll up in the chat and see if I can find where you left it in the regular chat section. Hold on. Levi, no, I can't start the show early tomorrow. It's actually my brother's birthday tomorrow, and we're all going out to eat. So I'll actually be out to eat when the rankings are released. So I'll just have my regular show tomorrow night, Tuesday night, at 10, and we'll talk about the rankings. And then later today, this afternoon, I'm going to put out my weekly top 10. Seth Rutherford says, Lou, why do you think we continue to try and run between the tackles when we've been seeing more success on runs to the outside? Just a trend I've been seeing. Kirby Smart's overall offensive philosophy, and whether it's good or bad, I think, is to do that over and over and over again in the first half, knowing that we're likely to only gain a yard, 2 yards, 3 yards, whatever. I think he intentionally does that for the benefit he hopes to gain in the fourth quarter. During my live stream of this game on the Patreon page on Saturday, during the first half when we kept running it up the middle, I told everyone watching, I said, he's going to keep doing this. And what it is Kirby Smart would love to win every single game the same way. He would love to win every single game 20-13 by running it up the middle 40 times in the first half for 3 yards a pop, so that in the fourth quarter, that defense is worn down and those 3-yard runs become 7 and 8 yard runs. That's just his sort of overall philosophy. I kind of get it. It makes a little bit of sense when you look at our offensive line. And I think that's a great plan against any team we play who has inferior players, because they're just going to wear down. And we've seen it over and over and over and over and over again. The problem has been, now it wasn't a problem Saturday because Fromm played well, but in general, the problem with that philosophy has been, in my opinion, When that doesn't work, there hasn't been a plan B, right? That wasn't working Saturday, so we went to the pass, and it worked. That hasn't been the norm. If you look at Auburn 2017 on the road, it was clear the run game wasn't working. We tried to pass. Fromm had a bad game. We lost. At LSU, same thing. We abandoned the run game, tried to let Fromm win it. He played bad. We lost. If you look at the second half of both games against Alabama, we couldn't run the ball in the second half. Fromm couldn't get a first down throwing the ball in the second half, much less score. We've scored a total of 10 points against Alabama in both those second halves combined. And we scored 3 in one and 7 in the other. You're not going to beat very many good teams averaging 5 points per second half. When it works, he looks like a genius. Because you're like, oh, man, all those 3 and 4 yard runs we did in the first half, and now this defensive line is just gassed. You know, they're done. They're gassed out. And he looks like a genius. When it doesn't work, it's bad. So, same thing against Texas. Didn't run the ball well. You know, so you give it to Fromm. Fromm had a bad game, and we lost. Against Florida, we couldn't run the ball. They put it in Fromm's hands, and he played well. Same thing last year. Fromm's best game last year was against Florida. His best game so far this year has been against Florida. So, you know, you gotta congratulate him for that. I mean, Fromm played great. He missed some. We left some points on the board in the first half because Fromm made some bad throws. But overall, I'm not going to criticize Fromm for his game on Saturday. Now during the game, if you if you were watching the live stream, then you know I went absolutely. I about lost my mind out here when he missed a couple of those touchdown passes. But overall, Fromm played his best game. I'm not going to knock Fromm for Saturday's game. I think he played a great game. If Fromm played every single game like he played Saturday, there would be no one criticizing Fromm ever, period. So, you know, if he could do that all the time, I would be extremely happy. Extremely happy. Smopton, thank you for the super chat, sir. Thoughts on Georgia Southern beating a top 25? That was a good win for Georgia Southern because they haven't been very good. So that was a big win. I don't know if App State got caught looking ahead to that South Carolina game because, you know, App State was undefeated and had a chance to get a win over a Power 5 team, which is coming up this week. And then they lost. And I think that game was at home for App State, too. So a head-scratching loss, really, for App State. But a big win for Georgia Southern, a team that really hasn't had many big wins lately. So I thought that was good. Seth, thank you for the super chat, sir. Fromm played great, but that O-line was the MVP. The pass protection was unreal, but the pass protection has been A++++ all year long. We've only given up 4 sacks all year. 3 of those sacks were in the South Carolina game. 2 of those 3 sacks in the South Carolina game were Fromm's fault. That's not me saying that or my opinion. That's what Kirby Smart said when he was asked about it after the South Carolina game. He said on 2 of the 3 sacks were the QB's fault for holding the ball too long and not getting it, not seeing whatever it was he was supposed to. I forget what he said, but so the pass protection has been great all year. The run blocking has been a little bit disappointing at times for Georgia. Now, I think part of that has to be put on the predictability of Georgia's offense. I mean, it's something like half of our possessions this year have been run, pass. So it's not too hard for a defensive coordinator to sort of game plan around that. So I don't think the offensive line's run blocking is as bad as some people are making it out to be. I think it's a combination of 2 things. I think, number 1, the run blocking is not as good as the pass blocking. I think that's obviously true. But number 2, I also think it's teams are putting – I mean, 5 people can't block 8, you know, no matter how good they are. So I think a lot of it is our predictability on offense in a lot of games and the scheme that the defense is playing against that. And not, you know, with Florida, we were able to take advantage of it. You know, Florida crowded the box, put their DBs on an island, and Fromm and the wide receivers were able to make some plays. Against South Carolina, that wasn't the case. South Carolina did the same thing. Crowded the box, force Fromm to beat you, and he had a bad game, bunch of turnovers. He had 4 turnovers in that game, and, we lost. The Florida game was the exact opposite. He played great, and we won. So, I couldn't be happier. I couldn't be happier. Who you like this week, Tennessee or Kentucky? I talked about that a little while ago. I was kind of surprised Kentucky's favored by, what did we see it was? 3.5? Yeah, Kentucky was favored by 3.5. Without looking into it at all, which I'll do before I make tomorrow's SEC video, but off the top of my head, I would take Tennessee in 3.5 points. Would you rather play LSU or Alabama? It doesn't really matter to me because I do think LSU and Alabama are both legitimately top 5 teams. So it doesn't really matter to me who we play. I know there's some people that want to play Alabama because they just want a win over Alabama or whatever. It doesn't matter to me who we play. I think Georgia probably matches up better with Alabama right now than they do LSU, particularly defensively. LSU really is running a Big 12 offense, and you don't face a lot of that in the SEC. So I in terms of like the matchup, I think Georgia probably matches up better with Alabama, but it doesn't matter to me personally who we play. You got to beat if you want to win the SEC, you got to beat a good team. So I don't I hope LSU wins the West so we don't have to play Bama, or I hope Bama wins the West so we don't have to play LSU. I don't buy into any of that. No matter who we play, if we get there and we can't beat them, I don't think we deserve to be in the playoff. And even if we were 12-0 heading into that game, I don't think we would deserve to be in the playoff if we lost. I think if you lose your conference championship game, that is a playoff game. Show up and beat them, whoever it is. So it doesn't matter to me who they play. But Oklahoma versus Georgia. Yeah, we beat Oklahoma, but they had the 115th ranked defense in America, and we beat them, 52-48? LSU's defense isn't top 5, but it's way better than Oklahoma's was in 2017. If Auburn wins out, can they sneak into the playoff conversation like they did in 2017? Not the way things are stacked right now. I don't think they would. I think you would need Ohio State or Clemson maybe to lose for a 2-loss Auburn team to get in. That would be interesting though. No, I don't see it happening because I don't think Auburn can't even. Auburn has already lost to LSU. Okay, so they need LSU to lose 2 games. Right? Yeah. They would need LSU to lose 2 games. That's not happening. And they haven't even played, so I don't think Auburn is even, I don't think Auburn's going to make it to the SEC title game, and a 2-loss team that doesn't win their division definitely isn't getting in. So I don't think they can make it. If they beat Georgia and Alabama beats LSU, they still won't get in. So I just don't see it happening. LSU would have to lose to Texas A&M and Alabama. Auburn would have to beat Georgia and Alabama. And even then, Alabama would only have the 1 loss. So no, I don't think there might not be a way Auburn can even get. Well, I think Alabama and LSU would have to each lose 2 more. Alabama and LSU would have to each lose 2 games. I don't see that happening. Georgia on my mind. Thank you for the super chat, sir. Georgia ran a more grown-up pace. Yeah, they did. And it showed. So and it just makes you wonder why that seems to disappear at times. So we'll see. Who's better, the Citadel or Wofford? I'll be honest with you, I would be completely guessing. I'm going to say the Citadel because I know someone who went there, but I couldn't even tell you either one of those teams' record. I'll just be honest. Talk about Arkansas. Arkansas is terrible. We talked about them a little while ago. They're terrible. I played a video from 2014 where I was talking about how bad Arkansas and Tennessee were. And here we are 5 years later, and they're both still not any good. I don't think Chad Morris is a terrible coach. He's got a, but it's hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel right now if you're an Arkansas fan. I think you're just so far behind everyone in the West. It's hard to imagine. I think Arkansas's goals at this point should be to make bowl games. Probably not what they want to hear, but they're a long way away, I think, from doing much more than that. Do I think Georgia has a shot at winning the SEC? Of course, Georgia has a shot at winning the SEC championship. They're going to win the East and most likely be 11-1. Of course they have a shot. I mean, I get it. All the trolls are saying, oh, it doesn't, especially the Florida fans. Oh, congratulations on beating Florida, but it don't matter. You got no chance in the SEC championship. Well, everyone told us we had no chance last year, too, and the year before against Auburn, and everyone told us we didn't have a chance against Alabama. We were going to get blown out in all those games. Well, we beat Auburn, and we lost to Alabama each time by 7 points in a game that Georgia completely dominated. So I don't want to hear that Georgia doesn't have a chance. If you say Georgia doesn't have a chance to win the SEC championship, you're either trolling, football ignorant, or you just hate Uncle Lou so much that it's ruined your mind to the point where you can't think rationally or clearly about college football. Does that mean Georgia will win? No. But of course Georgia has a chance against – look at Georgia has a chance against anybody in America. Look at their defense. Their defense is unreal. We haven't given up more than 2 touchdowns in a game all year. All year. We haven't given up a rushing touchdown all year. So the defense alone will keep Georgia in almost any game, no matter how – look how bad Georgia's offense was against South Carolina. Couldn't get a first down. Couldn't complete a pass. 3 interceptions. A lost fumble. 2 missed field goals. And still went to overtime. Why? Because of the defense. So the defense is going to keep Georgia in a lot of games, even against high-powered offenses. Now, can the offense score enough to beat an LSU or an Alabama? That remains to be seen. But to say that Georgia doesn't have a chance, I think is ridiculous. I don't think either LSU or Alabama, either one right now, I don't think would be more than a 6 or 7 point favorite against Georgia. And if there's anybody that disagrees with that and you're serious about it and you're not trolling, then I'll take 7 points right now against anybody that wants to make a bet, Georgia or Alabama. Just email me. It's got to be somebody it can't be some stranger that I don't recognize your name in here, though. It's got to be somebody I know from in here. I'll take 7 points, but if Georgia doesn't have a chance, you should be more than willing to give me 7 points. So I think South Carolina scored 30-something on Alabama, didn't they? I can't remember. All right, well, email me. Real McCoy, you can email me. You say you'll give me 10 points. We'll find somebody to hold the money for us, and I'll take 10 points. We'll find a neutral third party, and we'll each PayPal them $100 or whatever you want to do, and they'll hold the money until that game is played. Email me. I'll take 10 points against anybody in America, any team. That whoever I can't even remember the name now, whoever said that about the 10 points is one of those people I was talking about earlier that's either a troll, football ignorant, or so mad at Uncle Lou they can't think clearly about college football. So yeah, I'll definitely take the 10 points. So email me. We'll do $100. We'll find a third party to hold the money, and we'll be good to go. Slim Shady, what's up, buddy? Hey, FSU caller from Saturday and Willie Taggart, not sorry. I knew we were going to hear from you this week, buddy, and you deserve it too because you took a beating in the comment section with the Florida game, but so you sort of get your moment to shine now after beating your other rival, Florida State. Yeah, I love you too, McCoy, but I love money more. So email me because you say 10 points. So you say I love you, Lou. I love you too, but I love money more. So email me. We'll work out that bet. Who do I think will win the West? Whoever wins this weekend. It's going to be a good game. Here, this isn't anything official here because I know you guys think I just hit record and start yelling, and on reaction videos, that's what I do. But the preview and prediction videos that I do, do I always get them right? No. But I do take time before I do those videos, usually a couple of hours. And I look into the games. I read injury reports. I look at weather. I mean, so I put a lot of time, effort, and energy before I just start recording these preview and prediction videos. So I don't know yet what I'll do tomorrow for that LSU-Alabama game, but I'll tell you my general thoughts right now on this LSU-Alabama game. I 150% believe that to this point in the season, LSU has looked like a better team than Alabama. There is nothing that can convince me otherwise. I think LSU has better wins. I think LSU has played better against bad teams than Alabama has. I think LSU has looked more impressive, even offensively. And I think defensively, it's close. I think LSU has looked like the better team. I know that looking at last year has nothing to do with this year. I know that. But it is hard for me to get over the 29-0 thing. I know the offense is completely different this year, and rationally it shouldn't matter what happened last year, but mentally it's just hard for me to get over the 29-0 thing, and it's in Alabama this year. I've been saying, and I think in my preview and prediction videos, I picked Alabama to win, and I said the same thing. Both teams will be good, but it's in Alabama, so it's hard for me to pick against them there at home. I still feel that way right now. It's hard for me to imagine right now LSU winning that game in Alabama. LSU, man, I'm sure they wish they could somehow flip-flop and take a 29-0 beating in Tuscaloosa last year so they could get Bama at home this year because I do think LSU has looked like the better team. I really do. I think LSU has looked like the better team, and I think LSU is more tested up to this point than Alabama is. But it's hard. It's. I don't know what I'll do tomorrow. 6 points. I would probably take LSU in the 6 points right now. I don't know what I'll do tomorrow. I'll probably take LSU in the 6 points, but it's hard for me to imagine right now LSU winning that game in Bama. I'm not knocking LSU. I'm not knocking Bama. Just honest. I mean, And I have a feeling that there's a lot of people who probably feel the same way I do, that LSU has looked a little bit better than Bama, but it's just hard to pick Bama to lose at home. It's hard to take that leap. It's hard, at least for me. I'm not going to be surprised. The only thing that will surprise me in this game is if it's a blowout either way. That will surprise me. I'll be surprised if Alabama wins by 3 scores or 2 scores even. I'll be surprised if LSU wins by 2 or 3 scores. If the final score of this game ends up being 35-30 or 42-40 or 47-44 or 37-34, no matter who was on the winning or losing side, that won't surprise me at all. But the only thing that'll surprise me is a blowout. I hope Tua is healthy because I'm just a college football fan, not because I'm an Alabama fan, because I'm not. Tua is one of the most exciting players to watch in college football. He just is, whether you love him or hate him. It's exciting to watch him play. I hope he's healthy. You see a big matchup like this, and you're not personally invested in it, which I'm not, because I'm not a Bama or LSU fan. I want both teams to come into this game healthy. I was disappointed that Devin White had to sit out the first half of the LSU game last year. Now, it ended up not mattering. I think LSU's defense played amazing. Holding Alabama to 29 points last year is amazing. So LSU's defense played good enough to win even without Devin White for the first half last year. But offensively, they just couldn't even get a first down. So I hope everyone's healthy and all that for this game. I hope it's a good game. I hope it lives up to the hype, because it's literally all we're going to hear about all week is the LSU-Bama game. So it would be disappointing to me as a college football fan if in the third quarter of this game people are falling asleep because some team is up by 24 points or something. So I hope that's not. I hope it's a good game, and we'll see. Drizzle, thank you for the super chat, sir. Lou, thanks for the show. LSU finally has a chance against Bama. Can't wait for Saturday. Go Tigers. They definitely have a chance. Anybody saying LSU has no chance, same thing as people saying Georgia has no chance in the SEC title game. Of course LSU has a chance in this game. This is going to be a great game, I think. And you know what else? We talked about confidence earlier and how Tennessee is getting some confidence. And it doesn't really matter whether we believe that Tennessee is a lot better today than they were a month ago. Tennessee believes they're better, right? The players, which is what actually matters, they believe. I think there's been a lot of years in the last 2 or 3 years where LSU didn't think they could compete with Alabama. I think last year was one of those years. I mean, they don't come out and say that, obviously. But when you get beat so many times in a row, it gets to the point. Kentucky was like this with Florida. How many games did we watch between Kentucky and Florida where Kentucky was clearly better, Kentucky had leads late, and they just kept finding ways to lose? How many times in the last 3 or 4 years did that happen in Kentucky, Florida? And then Kentucky finally beat them. I think LSU thinks they can compete with Bama this year. And I'm not so sure they thought that last year. But I think they look around this year at their own team. They look at they look at Alabama, and I think LSU thinks they can win this game. And I think that matters. I think that's important. If anyone follows these games like a true Tiger fan, they would know LSU players better in Tuscaloosa than they do at home. Only place we can score. Now, if for some reason you come out and get shut out again, that would be bad. But I don't think anybody expects that to happen. I don't think anybody expects that to happen. North Florida White Trash. Good to see you this morning, sir. Glad you didn't run off. Congrats to your team, sir. They were more prepared, which is, of course, a code word for better coached. Because who does the preparing? The coaches. So thank you, North Florida White Trash. And yes, I would agree with you. LSU wants to make a statement. Yeah, no doubt about it. The sun don't shine up the same, dogs, but every day. Good morning. Penn State will win the Big Ten. I can't see that happening right now. I do think Penn State is a top 10 team. I think there are I think there are some one-loss teams and probably even some two-loss teams that are better than Penn State. I'm just going to be honest with you. But I do think Penn State is a legitimate top 10 team and very good. I do not think they can beat Ohio State, though. But we'll see. I mean, they play, so we don't have to guess. We'll see what they do this week against Minnesota. Nobody has anybody to cover Judy, Mike D. Yeah, I told you to email me. We'll find somebody to hold the money. You're taking Bama minus 10. I'm taking Georgia plus 10. I did not talk about the Brian Herrien catch, but that was amazing for a bunch of different reasons, right? Obviously, it was amazing because it was just an amazing catch. I mean, that's got to be one of the best catches I've seen in college football this season. But it was, and then it was by a running back. So I don't know. It's just funny when you look at sort of the trouble that Georgia's had at wide receiver, or sort of the reputation that Georgia has at wide receiver of not really having someone that can hurt a defense or whatever. And then Brian Herrien goes out and makes a catch like that. You're just like, Jesus Christ! You got running backs out here doing this, and but we can't get the ball to our wide receivers. But that was an amazing. I couldn't believe it. And the thing is, I mean, I love Brian Herrien. The guy has C talent, but he gives A++ effort on every single snap. Every single one. I love Brian Herrien, and I think every team needs some Brian Herriens, because not all 11 starters or not all of your 2 deep is going to be future NFL Hall of Famers. They're just not. Just look at the percentages. So I'm not knocking Brian Herrien, but he is obviously not as talented as the other starting running backs that Georgia's had over the last several years. Todd Gurley, Nick Chubb, Sony Michel. He's just not those guys, right? But he gives, you know who he is? He's David Pollock. He's an offensive David Pollock. That's what he is. He's undersized. He's not fast enough. He's not tall enough. He's not strong enough. He's not big enough. But all he does is give 110% of everything he has on every single play, period. And you need some players like that, because like I said, not every 5-star you sign is going to work out. Not every 4-star you sign is going to work out. You need DeAndre Baker was a 3-star. Effort goes a long way. Effort and a good amount of talent can sometimes trump not so much effort and all the talent in the world. And we've seen situations like that before. But Brian Herrien, man, the guy listen, he's been the 3rd or 4th best running back on Georgia's team every single year he's been at Georgia. But they can't keep him off the field. He played as a freshman, he played as a sophomore, junior, and now he's playing as a senior. And significant carries all 4 years, not just like put him in the 4th quarter when we're up by 40. I mean, significant carries in meaningful portions of games all 4 years. And you don't ever have to doubt Brian Herrien. You don't ever have to doubt him. Is he going to run for 1,000 yards or get drafted in first or second round in the NFL or win any All-SEC awards or anything? No. But he's going to give you everything he has on every single play. And all teams have players like that, right? What was that wide receiver's name for Clemson that seemed like he was there for like 10 years? But every time it was 3rd and 6, you just knew that guy was going to catch a 7-yard pass. You just knew it. And he was small, he was slow, he didn't run good routes, but he was amazing. Hunter Renfrow, yeah. That's Brian Herrien. That's Brian Herrien. David Pollock. It's easier for me to name Georgia guys that fit that mold than maybe players from some other teams. But no matter what team you're a fan of, you've got players like that. Maybe even if you don't have one now, you had one on your team last year or 5 years ago or something. You go, yeah, I remember that guy. He didn't make it in the NFL, but geez, he gave everything he had. Everybody's got players like that, right? Yeah, right now, Clemson's got a team full of home run hitting wide receivers, and they don't really have that go-to possession receiver. But, it doesn't seem to be hurting them, but I agree with the premise of what you're saying. Cold Blood says, Aaron will go down in the UJ Hall of Fame for his efforts alone. He has given everything he has to the University of Georgia. How can you not like him? That's why I got so upset this offseason when there was a rumor floating around that he had flunked out or something, or what was it? He flunked out or got caught cheating, or there was a rumor like that started floating around, and that's why that upset me so much. But luckily, it ended up not being true. Yeah, Daniel, you're right. He's a senior. He does everything the right way. He's a team guy. Like I said, he's been the third or fourth best running back on the team every year, stuck on the depth chart every year. Never complains, never seems like he has a bad attitude. I don't remember him ever having a bad game where you're like, man, what's wrong with Harrion today? Like I said, is he going to go out and get you 150 yards? Is he likely to break 80-yard touchdown runs? No. But last year, now I know we weren't the greatest in short yardage situations last year, but who'd we put in the game last year when we needed 1 yard? Every time it was Brian Harrion. Anyway, it's 10 o'clock, so I don't know why I went 2 hours today instead of 1, but Martin Rosario super chat. Let me see if I can find it. Missed it. Thank you for the super chat, Martin. He says, the fall of FSU amuses me, Lou. Miami is coming together. We're finally getting it together. Florida State's a dumpster fire. So they had no choice but to get rid of Willie Taggart, I don't think. The longer they kept him, the longer it was going to take to dig out from whatever hole he leaves there. And if Miami can win a couple of games down the stretch, then maybe they can take some positive momentum or whatever into the offseason. And come out next year and do a little bit better. Year 2 under Manny Diaz. It's rough on first-year head coaches. Being a head coach is a learning curve. You can have the most talented team in the world, but if you have a brand new head coach, there's going to be some bumps in the road. And he had issues at quarterback. It's hard to. You need consistency at all positions, really. But offensive line and quarterback, you need consistency there. An offensive line needs to learn to play together, and a quarterback needs experience. So when and Miami's got issues at both those positions, plus they have a new head coach. So new head coach, rotating quarterbacks in week to week because of injuries or poor play or whatever, and struggling offensive line, those things just aren't the recipe for a successful season, and that's sort of what we're seeing with Miami. But, so next year, shouldn't have that issue. You're going to have an experienced Jaron Williams. Who knows? Who knows? You have some other options, I'm sure, too, at quarterback. Offensive line will be a year older, and Manny Diaz will be year 2. So reason to be excited, I think, for Miami fans, at least in terms of taking a step forward. I don't know that anybody's going to be picking Miami to beat Clemson next year or anything like that, but I think Miami will be picked high again in their division next year for sure. So, but hey, I'm going to end the stream, guys. I got to get to work on today's top 10 video. The first playoff committee poll comes out tomorrow, Tuesday. I released my first playoff poll last Monday. I'll release an updated playoff poll today. We did have a top 10 team lose, of course, Florida. 4 of the top 5 teams were off this week, so there probably won't be much movement in the top half of the UNCLELOU poll, but there will be a lot of movement in 6 through 10 because we had a loss there. So we'll see where they stack up with Georgia, Oklahoma, Oregon, Utah. Does a 2-loss team crack the top 10? I'm going to get started on that now and hopefully have that up for you guys in a couple hours. But really appreciate you guys tuning into the morning show today. Yeah, I love this morning show. This morning show is so much fun. This might end up being one of the best decisions I ever made here on LouTube is starting this morning show. I love this morning. I love the night show too. The night show is more stressful though because I take calls and there's a lot more setup involved in that. and I have to keep my finger on the mute button all the time because you got these 8-year-olds calling in screaming the N-word and other dumb shit like that. This is just a lot more fun. I feel like I can just interact with you guys in the comment section, and I don't know, it's just more relaxing. I spend a lot of time talking about things that aren't football related on the morning show, which is good. It gives me a chance to talk about something different every once in a while than just football. But and you guys have shown a ton of support for this morning show. I mean, we're only in the second or third week, and we already have we had over 350 people watching at one point earlier this morning, and we're even now 2 hours in, we're at 285. So I can't thank you guys enough for all the support you've shown on this morning show. It's always a risk to try something new on YouTube. You know, there's a lot of trial and error involved with YouTube in general, a lot of hits, a lot of misses. But so far, this has worked out, I think, better than I even could have hoped. And that's all thanks to you guys for tuning in and giving the show a chance to succeed in the beginning. So, again, thank you guys. I appreciate it. The next morning show will be Wednesday morning at 8 a.m. For now, I'm doing this 3 days a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. We still have the Tuesday and Thursday night call-in shows. That comes on at 10 p.m. Eastern, and the Saturday morning 9 a.m. show. So plenty of live shows, and, of course, all the uploaded videos that you get during the week, during the season. So top 10 video today, preview videos the next couple of days after that, trash talk video on Friday, and then you guys know the deal on Saturdays. So appreciate you guys tuning in, and I'll see you again real soon.